Time for T Watts and TR on the YouTube and podcast homes for BamaOnline.com. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BOL, alongside site publisher Tim Watts. And Tim, the pilot video edition of T Watts and TR here on the YouTube home for BOL. I forewarned our friends on the roundtable, by the way, that this would likely be in video form, so they can't say they didn't at least get a warning here. So I know Halloween's at the end of the month, but maybe a little bit earlier for some of those folks tuning into this.
Yeah, it's a great month for this to come on. I know we put off 4 months actually getting around to doing it, but pretty excited. I mean, we know what we look like, but we've never actually watched ourselves spin our magic. So this will be a new one.
No secrets, when you do the video stuff. And
you see what kind of friend Travis is. My Saints are playing his Jaguars, and he comes flaunting his
get it
hoodie. Wear it now.
Fresh off that win over the Buffalo Bills. British world champions, I'm calling us, Tim, the
Premier
Jacksonville
League.
Jaguars. 2-0 in England. Where's the rings? I'm ready for the rings.
We should have some for you.
Maybe some rice pudding or something.
Some chips.
Fish and chips for Trevor Lawrence and the boys. But no, we got a lot to get into on the latest edition of T Watts and TR. We're going to have the Roundtable Mailbag. That's been a staple of this program in the past, and it'll continue with this one. And it is full, Tim. So we're going to get around to it pretty quickly during the show. But we talked about October and this Alabama team coming off a win over Texas A&M on the road, sitting here going into mid-October at 5-1 at the midway point of the 2023 season. It's been sort of a fortuitous route, I guess you could call it, to getting here. In some ways, Tim, it feels like this team has played maybe 9 or 10 games, and here we are 6 games in.
I mean, it's been wild. I mean, when you look at the Texas game leading at one point the second half, you remember you go from that lead to the quick turnaround, and then the South Florida game, which I don't have words for still. Just a crazy game, and then to end up where we're here, beat a couple of good teams. I still think Ole Miss is a good team. I think Texas A&M is a good team, and despite what I'm hearing or reading, some of the people make excuses for their hot takes. I thought Alabama was clearly the best team on the field, and had they cleaned up half of their mistakes, those stands would have been very empty. 7 minutes left in that fourth quarter.
Absolutely, I said it on Instant Analysis right after the game, and also in Second Watch. It felt like Alabama had to win that game 3 or 4 times in the last 7 minutes, and made it tougher than it needed to be, but it is a second straight road win in the Southeastern Conference for Nick Saban's team. And part of my pick of Alabama last week, I picked Alabama 24-20. I think all of our scores, the BOL staff scores going into that game, were
pretty close.
You could put a towel over them and be on them. Was a lot of it had to do with the noise. There was so much noise about Alabama. This is it. This is the fall. This is the fall of the mystique. This is the absolute moment. And you said it from a national perspective, you could pick a talking head, and they were all in on Texas A&M. Although all we had really seen from A&M after being embarrassed in the second half of that Miami game about 3 weeks ago were wins over a very, very average Auburn team, especially early in the season. And then an Arkansas team that just offensively, as Alabama will see this week, other than KJ Jefferson, doesn't scare you all that much. So that's what I went on as much as anything. I don't know about you, Tim.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's what the media does. I've talked about this on the roundtable. Yesterday was the classic examples of the year Vanderbilt was the hot pick. Like I told Charlie Potter, our own little Chuck Potter, I said, hey, start screen grabbing these jackasses. Start grabbing all these hot takes, because they know they're going away. They know when they lose, they're going to their next hot pick. Charlie ran a slideshow of every one of those hot takes from Bama. I mean, they had to literally call out the National Guard to get Alabama to stop scoring in that game, as you remember. So the media frenzies, I'm kind of used to it. It started the year, Alabama wasn't going to be very good. You remember that. Mm-hmm. And then it flipped to everybody had Alabama's national champion. And I'm like, so seeing everybody jump on this Alabama's over. And I'll be honest, if Alabama lost that game, nothing's over. This is still a talented team. It still could have won the West. They have a lot of talent coming back next year. They have the number one recruiting class, one of the best ever on paper. A lot of those guys sitting over there, getting ready to play. So, I mean, it's a long way from over. I don't know if they know what over means. Maybe that's where the problem starts.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is that whereas the win over A&M served as a foot-long shut the hell up sub to a lot of the naysayers out there, I still don't look at this Alabama team as anything close to a finished product, right? I
No,
mean, you commit 14 penalties, you lose the ball a couple of times, you can't run the football effectively enough last Saturday. Still a lot for this Alabama team to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the number we were discussing again on the round table. Is it 6 or 7 touchdowns called back because of penalties?
Yeah.
I mean, that's absurd. I mean, that's just an absurd number to have to be a competitive team. I don't really, the false starts, I think Saban said that too. I'm not really blaming the offensive lineman. That was a mess. That crowd there at College Station's amazing. It's the SEC, they're as good as anybody. The crowd's loud. It's, they get after it. It's hard. I think he said they were going to quiet count or something.
Silent
count. I mean, that's some tough stuff to do, but you won't see many more. It kind of reminds me of last year's Tennessee game, right, where they actually lost the game. But this year they managed to win it. So I thought Milroe made some nice plays. Of course, the thing about Milroe is he'll do stuff, and the people that are naysayers, they'll see like the pass at the end of the game. I mean, he chili peppered it over there, right?
Yeah.
But he was wide open. There was nobody in the vicinity. I'm not excusing it, but I see exactly what, the guy's standing there wide open. But then again, he double skipped it over there like a rock across a pond. So, but still, to me, it's a good win. I could care less what other people think. I think it's a good win.
Yeah, my man Malik Benson was so wide open, even though he got one hop, he still tried to take off. He was like, he had forgotten that the throw was a part of it. He was so wide open. He's like, I know he didn't just one hop it, so I need to run with this because this throw did get here.
Maybe my man took off. Maybe they didn't see it skip.
Malik had like 2 targets in the whole game. One of them, he's wide open and it hops to him. But, you talked about the crowd noise and the pre-snap penalties. I heard some interesting stuff from Sam Pittman in the last day or so, Arkansas head coach. And he said, yeah, it's crowd noise because Arkansas struggled with this apparently too. It's offensive line. He said, but pre-snap now you've got defensive lines that are doing so much movement. Like after an offense will make its check, the defense checks, and then the defensive line, Georgia does it. Ole Miss did it against Arkansas last week. They'll shift. And so even if you're going on, you're not going on sound, that can be problematic, the movement. But then you've also got these defenses yelling things like shift and move. And that causes offenses to flinch. And
also you're aware of who you're facing.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys know there's some monsters on that defensive line. I mean, those are a lot of high star guys, top 100, top 55 star caliber defensive linemen. They knew him in high school. They knew him from the rankings. They knew him from last year. So you're not just facing all that, but you got a monster in front of you.
Yeah, and once you do it one game, you can count on seeing it, right? Yeah. Every game. Once you put something on tape, good or bad, there's going to be less or more coming by the bushel.
Yeah, no doubt.
What about this Alabama defense, man? Especially since the start of the second half of the Ole Miss game through Saturday's game. I know you look at it statistically, the numbers are pretty similar in terms of total defense and those type of things. But boy, this defense can take the ball away, right? In comparison to last year, especially with all those guys in the secondary moving on the NFL, and to match your interception total from 2022 in just 6 games in 2023. That's the thing that keeps this defense going. And once again, against A&M, Caleb Downs, that third quarter interception after Milroe's, that's as big as it gets. Now, give Tresman Marshall some credit on that play too. He was in Max Johnson's lap, but that's the way a defense is supposed to work. And when you have a Will Anderson like you had last year, your takeaway should be through the roof because you're thinking 31 is going to be living with these quarterbacks, and your linebackers and secondary are going to be, taking the ball away.
Yeah, Caleb's just got tremendous ball skills. You can see that in high school when he was on the offensive side of the ball. The way he made the catch, turned his body, everything about that, with Caleb. Caleb's that guy we couldn't overhype him. We kept hyping him. We loved him, thought he was such a great player, and he's still going to live up to it. That's what's kind of amazing. When you look at true freshman, the plays he makes. I mean, he does just, he's just a professional, very professional, mature guy to be a 19-year-old player. But yeah, the interception, anticipation, the carry, catching the ball, keeping the ball in the air. But the defense, I noticed Trez Marshall. I don't know if he got enough love as far as pressure on the quarterback, but man, he was now he didn't get home, but they knew he was coming several times. So I mean, he rushed some things and jumped on it. But the defense overall, I mean, you wanted better tackling. I feel like they're a much better tackling team. You wanted, fundamentals. You wanted aggressive. They look fast. They look lean. I mean, that defensive line, I felt they were held a lot of that game. I mean, they were in that backfield a lot, and I think they had a lot. I mean, that one play you've seen on Twitter, I'm sure, where they're just running over 3 offensive linemen.
Yeah,
like
the A&M center trips, and then the left guard. Yeah,
did just
domino effect.
Boom.
Yeah.
So I mean, you saw how aggressive they are, and seeing Justin out there after being injured last year is just awesome. So a lot funner team, I think, that you are seeing on defense. I know a lot of people have been screaming for it the last few years.
Yeah, 4-man pass rush against A&M. Really didn't have to bring an extra guy. So when you saw Trezman Marshall or Deontay getting pressure, a lot of times that was still only 4 guys.
Yeah.
Because they would drop some guys, some zone pressure looks, some things like that. And Dallas Turner certainly living up to it, Tim, to go along with Chris Braswell, who's been sort of it's been a process. It's been a work in progress for Chris Braswell, because this was a guy, even though he showed up as a highly rated recruit, back in 2020, I guess it was.
It took a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. But he showed up at like 205.
Yeah.
You knew it was going to be a minute. Now he's 255 and look at him.
And dude, that play, and I know it was called back, but that's one of the most impressive plays you can see. The guy get the block. Did he catch it in the air? I don't know. I mean,
the hop came right back up to him.
It is so rare. That's such a special.
Still eye-hand coordination. Yeah.
Because usually when you block it, they pick it up. They celebrate it. You know what I mean? But to pick it up, grab it, and hit that sideline with the escort, that was a beautiful play. I know that the Dallas, that wasn't much of a penalty.
It's kind of chintzy, wasn't it? The penalty,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, it's just
by the letter of the rule book, it was. But gosh,
I mean, Dallas. I mean, you got to avoid it because you can't give them you can't give them a reason. That's the one thing I've talked about with referees. You can't give them a reason in any sport to look to call something. I feel like that was definitely a little
Well, you call that, but look at some of the shots college quarterbacks take in the pocket, right? Yeah. And a lot of that goes uncalled. In comparison, certainly to the NFL, you touch a quarterback in the pocket, essentially, after the ball's out on Sunday, it's a flag. It seems like everybody in college football is protected except the quarterback.
Yeah, it's weird. In the NFL, they literally get mad if you hit them legally hard.
Right.
Like the quarterback runs to the sideline, and if he's got both feet in and you hit him, they want to fight you. Get off the field if you don't want to be hit. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, when you see – Max Johnson's a tough kid. His dad, Brad, played in the NFL. He's a good college player. Jalen's obviously a tough kid. They both have pretty good size on them. So I think there's a little bit of let them get away with it because they're bigger kids. Maybe Bryce type guy that gets a little bit of that call because, obviously if you run into Jalen, he's not flying as far as Bryce was,
Bryce didn't get it at Tennessee last year, did he?
Yeah, he didn't. That was a such game.
Still don't know how that wasn't targeting on Bryce, but
yeah, there's a lot of going back to that Tennessee game. But yeah, they had a field day. Max and Jalen both just took a beating. Had a lot of hits. But again, I thought it was a really good game outside of the penalties for Alabama. Loved Burton. I've seen some people saying shut up and play. I don't mind the energy if it doesn't get a penalty. Right. You want somebody, you want that edge sometimes. You know what I mean? Dallas has that edge. He's
especially
a little bit
on the road. Yeah.
Yes. You watch sports are so much momentum and emotion, and it takes one guy yapping to get everybody jumping and moving around.
Well, and A&M was talking too.
Oh, the whole game.
I said it after
talking trash to Saban during the week.
I said it after the game. Jake Johnson was talking for A&M after his touchdown to Malachi, where they both got the unsportsmanlike conduct calls in the end zone. So you can't tell me in a situation like a return on a blocked field goal, if a guy's got a chance to dial up a guy that's been talking the whole game, I'm sure Dallas wanted to do more probably at that point than he did.
I mean, they talked all week. Anaya Smith.
Everybody talked.
Yep. Even after the game, he's like, Saban was running for me. No, he didn't. He didn't really know you were out there still. He was going with his team.
Yeah, he was.
It wasn't.
Getting on
you
the
sought
jet.
him out though. You all week you had to talk about it. Then you sought him out and shake his hand.
I give him credit for that.
He's a good player though.
Because you could talk all week and take that L and then be the first one in the tunnel too. So for him to at least try to,
Joker can
talk
run.
with Saban.
I know that Joker can run though.
You know what? You know what else?
Fly.
Tim, what did Saban say last year about Alabama on the road? In the pregame, it was quiet. He didn't sense that team was anxiety free, like they could play. Well, Jermaine didn't seem to have much anxiety.
That's what I'm saying. You can't have.
You can't have it both ways.
You can't be the don't have energy and you either got energy. You can't control. Look, I'm an emotional guy. You know that. I can't control when I scream. I don't really know it. It's not like, hey, if this guy gets a hit here, I'm losing my crap. You know what I mean? He just gets a hit and I'm getting loud. I mean, I think Burton's an emotional guy. I think Dallas is a physical, emotional guy. But you're right. You can't be meek and be brave and aggressive. So I don't think Burton and he pushes the line. He's always pushed the line. But
you're more worried about the timing of some of this with him.
Yes, but I mean,
you're worried it might happen at a critical spot.
Yeah.
That's the only concern you have with it, and I think it's legitimate.
A legit concern, but it's also guys that are have full of energy.
But if he's going to give you $190 playing that way, guess what? You'll take your chances, right?
You can take 15 back, right?
The math, Tim and I weren't exactly calculus majors back in the day, but we know that math pretty good. Yes. 15 from, like 205 or something.
Yeah, that was a chippy game. There's a lot more.
It was.
I'll tell you what, I felt that it was also a very well sportsmanlike game for the most part. I saw Bama helping guys up. I saw Texas A&M helping Alabama guys up. I didn't feel anything was excessively dirty. You know what I mean? In a league where somebody will tackle you and twist your knee, little things like that. I didn't see any of that. I thought there was a lot of respect on the field after the game as well. So, it's Texas A&M Bama. That's quite the rivalry, in my opinion. There's been some great games.
So halfway through this thing, Tim, is this a national championship type of team that you've seen to this point? Or do you need to see more, especially as much as anything, how this team handles that win coming home against an Arkansas team that has lost 4 in a row on the road once again for Sam Pittman's team, Tennessee coming up in a couple weeks. The maturity, I guess, of this team we'll find out a lot about this week on homecoming, early kickoff. But then once you get to Tennessee and beyond, that's when you're really in championship season, I guess.
Yeah, he's still at Kentucky, still at Auburn. Got a nice little run here. LSU with that redemption game, possibly from last year. I don't know if Alabama's a national championship team, but I don't know who is. Like, I know there's good teams. Georgia's a good team. They're a good team. They're not somebody I guarantee is going to win a national championship. Michigan, maybe, but I haven't really seen them play anybody. I'm at least familiar with that out of them. Everybody's got flaws. USC's got flaws. Oregon's, you're seeing the stage now where everybody's big win, Texas A&M's loss was to Miami, who everybody thought Miami was good. Whether Mario fumbled or not, they should not be a tight ball game with Georgia Tech.
No.
That is Haynes King's.
Georgia Tech had just lost at home to a MAC conference team.
Yes, and they have
Haynes King
and Christian Leary, 2 other SEC transfers, dropping a dime behind 3 in the secondary. Great pass by Haynes King, by the way. Unbelievable. Good to see Christian Leary score. But
how does somebody get behind you, though?
So far, 3 guys so far behind them. That's
by 5 yards. It wasn't.
That's worse than
when I didn't see it live, Tim, so I thought this must have been a tip ball, Hail Mary. No. It's just a guy running right behind the secondary with 3 seconds left. That's all.
That's the fumble has them so mad they're forgetting that never should have happened anyways. Time was out. I think he scored with 1 second left, maybe. You bat that ball in the air. I don't know how it's not picked off. I mean, the guy's rolling out to his right. I don't know if they're in man coverage, press. I don't know what was happening.
No, they brought like pressure. The defensive coordinator, I think afterwards, Guidry, was asked about it, and he said, we didn't want to play soft. So, you didn't. Here's this L.
Yeah, so you've got teams we think are good, and then they're in struggles. We've seen Ohio State struggle. Maryland gave them a really good game. Notre Dame, who everybody thought was really good, is now doubled down on losses.
Nobody's talking about Sam Hartman as much anymore, are they?
No, not at all. Who's good's Louisville.
That Jeff Brom is the poor man's. I've said it. Brom is the poor man's Sark. Everybody talks about Sark, and they should. But Jeff Brom is that kind of dude. It's just more the blue collar Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah, that was a game. They won that game. There was no fluke. I also said, on a side note, who's doing really well? Complete side notes, Arizona.
Yeah.
Arizona's a legit team.
And they're recruiting pretty well, too.
Yes, they're a legit team that could have beat USC. They were definitely in the game with Washington. I mean, those are two back-to-back tough games that they were battling in. So I just think football, the diversity in this year, I mean, Georgia's a good team. Obviously, Michigan's probably, if they get by Ohio State, they're probably going in. Same for Ohio State if they beat Michigan. So there's just no team I feel is great. And if you look at the coaches and what they say, I don't think anybody's, Kirby was over there saying they need to rank the whole SEC, trying to get a strength of schedule up. You know what I mean? Things are getting tough. So obviously Georgia's a team to watch. Alabama, how they develop. I mean, Alabama runs this rest of this season. I think they're definitely in the discussion, right?
Oh, I got asked that question on a radio show this morning. If Alabama runs the table, will it make the college football playoff? And I was like,
yeah.
How do they, if they're 12-1 coming out of Atlanta with a win over Georgia, who will be undefeated in that game? The better question is, will the SEC get 2 in? If Georgia,
yeah, they will, and they answered,
but Georgia's strength of schedule. Georgia goes 12-0 against that schedule and then gets beat by Alabama in Atlanta. And let's say Oregon's undefeated coming out of the Pac-12. The question I got today was, would one SEC team make it? I don't see how an SEC champion with even one loss is left out of the 4.
They'd go over Georgia with 1 loss in that scenario for sure.
Yeah. There's some scenarios where I think 2 would be really, really problematic. A lot of scenarios right now, but the SEC's getting 1 in.
I just think this season is as wild as anyone could predict. I mean, nobody had Oklahoma over Texas.
No.
And looking at this now, how good would that Oklahoma in hindsight been versus Georgia to start the year?
Dylan Gabriel against that defense.
I really didn't know what to think of Oklahoma. I still thought they were another year away. Really good football team. I haven't seen them as much this year. They did lose their leading wide receiver. Another tough game. You know what we saw a lot of this weekend? Some really not great clock management at the end of games. That's what I'd like to go through the number of games that had like
all of them.
And I noticed it because, like Sark's talking about it. Obviously, Mario's talking about it. Saban's talking about it. So we've got 3 right there discussing it. That's without me even doing a deep dive. There's probably some other teams going for 2 when they're up, when they're down 3.
Yeah.
So what else is going on?
The 2-point decision, the end of half, end of game, clock management, Tim, that's a lot of the charm of college football. You take that out, we probably don't enjoy. I mean, think of Les Miles, how much we enjoyed him in those situations, because you never knew what the heck the hat was going to do in some of those spots. But you know what else we got this week? We've got Dan Enos week coming in with those Arkansas Razorbacks.
Hello, Dan.
The brief assistant at the University of Alabama. I don't think he was ever formally announced as Alabama's new offensive coordinator once Locks got that Maryland job. But I don't think he was around long enough after that.
Yeah.
It was here today, gone tomorrow for Dan Enos as he made the move to Miami.
When I looked
4 or
it up
5 years ago now.
Yeah,
he's had 3 other jobs since then. Did you know that?
Crazy. He's about to have a 4th one.
Yeah, 3 or 4 other. He had Miami,
Cincinnati, Miami, Arkansas,
Maryland. He actually went and worked for Locks. Yeah,
4 for 4.
What in the world? But yeah, Enos, that was one of the more bizarre situations. And I know he
Yeah.
put out a statement after there was a report that, Saban uttered the infamous or famous line of "Where the F is Dan" when he walked into a staff meeting,
Mhm.
apparently, or reportedly. Dan Enos came out after that and said, "Of course I would notify my current employer that I was leaving for another job." Well, I know we both knew some people around that situation
Yeah.
at the time, and the stories were pretty memorable.
Yeah. Alabama staff, there's people that were on the Alabama staff that absolutely didn't know Dan Enos left, and who also said Nick Saban didn't know Dan left.
I knew an offensive line. We worked together on this because we were trying to get the story. There was an offensive line coach candidate at the time, and he interviewed with Dan Enos the day before Dan left, apparently, like the
Yeah.
Ursays from Baltimore to
Mhm.
Indianapolis in the middle of the night. And I was in touch with him as he was going through the process. Oh, everything went great. Spent pretty much the whole day with Dan and a couple of the offensive coaches. And then the next day, he finds out that Dan left too. So he didn't interview with Saban as much as he interviewed with Enos because the thought was Enos was going to be the coordinator. So Enos
Sure.
leaves. Now, this guy has essentially interviewed with no one on the Alabama staff. And then it worked out, though, right? Here comes Steve Sarkisian. Here comes
Yeah.
Kyle Flood,
Yeah.
previously of the Atlanta Falcons. But it worked out for this offensive line coach candidate, too, because he's now a group of 5 head coach. I'd say it worked out pretty well for everyone except Dan Enos, how that
Dan
all
Enos.
played out.
I mean, I wonder if he unpacks his bags. You know what I
Well,
mean?
he recently responded to some angry
Dude.
emails from an Arkansas fan, which tells me the smoke would have been a lot for Dan as offensive coordinator at Alabama. I mean, if he's interacting with 19-year-old Arkansas
He'd be
fans,
posted on the round table.
yeah. What would be
Arguing
Dan Enos's
arguing
username?
with our
Well,
guys
this is
out
another
there.
rabbit hole I can go down now. Dan Enos's username on BOL on the round table. That could be a good contest for our subscribers. Maybe we could come up with this week. But it was, man. And look, the guy can obviously coach because he always lands somewhere.
I think he can interview.
He can
I know
interview.
that's what I think he does. But for those not familiar, that's on Twitter that Dan Enos got some email criticism from an Arkansas student,
Yes.
and then proceeded to discuss the scheming and play calling by
Not calling a
asking that
quarterback
student, "What
sneak.
would you call?" So now we got the
And
sophomore.
incorporated emojis into his response.
So
That's
we
so
got the
good.
sophomore whose mom is still having groceries delivered to him, telling Dan how to call plays, and they're arguing.
Yeah, I think one of the responses from the student was, "Dan, you got a 250-pound quarterback. It's not all that hard to figure out." Like, he was having a
The
legitimate
student had
discourse.
simplified the offense a considerable amount. He had shortened the playbook rather quickly. The last
Oh,
time I heard somebody remember Lance Thompson jetted out to go work for Lane
yeah.
Kiffin the same way.
Yeah, it seemed at the time that the Lurleen Wallace Bridge from Tuscaloosa to Northport had been napalmed by Lance Thompson, but as is the
That was
case,
a
as
good
we've
one.
seen with Lance, to tell you what kind of survivor he is, he still made it back to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
You know,
Lance is going to survive.
if
That's the
you can
best way to
recruit,
win.
it's like being not a shooter in basketball, Tim, but a shot maker.
Yeah.
If you can make shots in basketball, you can come home again. And if you can recruit, as you know, that's pretty much the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, let's get into this mailbag coming up here in just a little bit because we got a lot. We're thick in the mailbag,
Not a
and
question. We went from none to like 100,
yeah,
and
we
we got
did.
1,000th follower in the
Yeah,
mix.
we did. We did pick up our 1,000th
Thank you. A lot
subscriber
of emotions.
on YouTube, the BOL home for YouTube. So, man, we're fired up about that for sure. We appreciate everyone that has already hit that subscribe button. If you haven't as of yet, be sure to do it. Turn on those notifications. All of our video content you're going to find right here on the YouTube home for BamaOnline.com. It is perfect this time of year. Tim
It
loves him some
is.
October. I do as well. You're a big Halloween guy, I know, and you like the Halloween movies. This is where we're a little bit different. You like the Halloween movies, you like the horror flicks, you
Yeah.
like the shows. For me, it kind of comes down to, is Beetlejuice a Halloween movie? If it is, then I like a Halloween movie. Big Michael Keaton fan. You pretty much put Michael Keaton in anything, I'm going to watch it. Got Alec Baldwin, of course, in that one as well. So this is your time of year. My wife's a big Halloween person. She's born on her birthday's the 30th, the end of the month.
Nice.
So
I didn't even
she
know
likes
that.
And in fact, during the Alabama bye week, we're going to go to New England, and we're actually going to go to Salem on or right around Halloween. So that should be interesting. But I guess Rocky Horror Picture Show, for me, Beetlejuice, you like a bunch of them though, don't you?
I like them all. I mean, I'm not huge into I like horror stuff anyway. So Halloween just goes hand in hand. My daughter, who's our youngest, loves Halloween. Like she's I wonder about her sometimes. You know what I mean? Like you got some tendencies here. I got to Google. And, but she loves it. So we love it. We watch shows and movies and, that's, but I watch it year round. But I mean, I am a big fan. I mean, I grew up in the era as you did, where the horror movie had all
Nightmare on Elm Street.
I mean, seriously, it was literally like a don't have premarital sex. Every movie had sex and the kids getting killed for having the sex. Spear through the back, knife through the throat.
Dead man's curve. Yeah.
I never went to camp because of Friday the 13th and these shows. I'm not going to camp. Camp counselors couldn't trust them. So, yeah, but we love it. I mean, Halloween with Jamie Curtis is always the one. And she did a great one in 2018 or 19. She did another one called Halloween. That's a really good remake. The other ones are okay, but her two called Halloween are really good. And plus, there's so many series on. I might start a thread on this on the round table, some movies and shows to watch. But there's just so much to see. But it's the best time of the year for sports. Also,
it's a great time of year for sports. I mean, what about the Braves last night, man? Austin Riley in the bottom of the 8th, and then the throw to first for the double play to end that game and get Bryce Harper at first.
I mean,
in the 9th. Oof, you talk about a horror movie. That was nearly another one for that Braves offense, but it woke up just in time.
Yeah, I mean, you look, baseball's so weird to me. You play 162 games season. Logic tells me the winner of that's the best team, right? The logic says sort of like soccer's Premier League. You played all these games, here's the winner. But I love the playoffs at the same time. However, I don't believe there's any benefit to being the first or the last seed. I mean, the Dodgers and the Orioles and the Braves, I think, are the top 3 records in baseball. They're 1-5 right now. And I think the record is 2-6 for everybody that had a bye week.
Yep.
A bye week. I think I'm flipping sports here, but
I mean, it's one thing in football or basketball, right? That is where you can probably more so see the benefit because of the physical wear and tear. And I know it's a 162 game season. It's a lot.
Yeah, but it's a different. Yeah,
it's a different grind. And I could see that being a detriment in some years or a lot of years to baseball, I guess, more so. You're a baseball guy, though. I've probably watched 4 innings of baseball before last night all year.
Oh, wow.
And it's not because I'm a baseball hater. I'm more of a golf guy, as you know. So I watch a ton of the pro golf, probably as a result of not watching as much baseball. I watch the NFL, I watch the pro golf, and then probably baseball more so than the NBA. But I know this is your time.
I was pretty excited. The NBA had a game last night. It was just a preseason, but it's, Chet versus Frenchie, basically two of the almost, I guess you use unicorn too much now, but both of them are kind of unicorns, 7-foot plus guys.
Yeah.
Play on the perimeter, skinny as a rail, block shots long. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. Had Monday Night Football. I love it because you're right. The weather's changed enough. We're not at that point where it's cold all day. You're still able to,
hoodies.
Hoodies. But, yeah, you have that. You have football. You have the heart of the SEC schedule.
It's real.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's all real.
It all goes hand in. We know what October's bringing us.
Let me ask you this, though. Freddy Krueger or Jason, if you put them in a street fight, I mean, Freddy's got that mean, what was it, right hand, obviously.
Yeah. He has some issues.
Your personal favorite maybe between those two?
I think Freddy's just unbeatable, right? You can't kill him.
And the look was rough.
You just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just can't kill him. I mean, he's like, he's motivated. He's burned. They threw him in a furnace. He's got all that, Jermaine
he was like
energy. You know what I mean?
He was like Predator. You know,
he was, and then dudes like coming through. The first one's like coming through Johnny Depp's waterbed and pulling him down, and you know what I'm saying? Imagine having someone chase you that only can catch you when you sleep.
those
Is
were the
there a bigger obstacle than that? I mean, come on.
those were
Yeah.
high school date night days for me when I
See, I
think of
don't worry
those
about
movies.
Jason because I'm not worried about him rolling up into CVS on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's gonna have the popo all over him. If he's walking around, Alabaster City Park.
yeah,
But other dudes coming in my bed, I'm just watching TV,
yeah.
not
Jason
off.
had better
Boom.
hair too than Freddie.
Yeah.
A lot better
I tell
hair.
you, it's crazy. It's Jason's mama. In that first one, that
Well,
was
I mean, apple
she was
tree, whatnot. You know.
yeah, there was no roll. That apple fell and stuck its landing.
Let's get into the mailbag, my man. Let's do it. Our roundtable mailbag. We always appreciate the contributions of our faithful followers there at BamaOnline.com. We'll start with Ghost of Bryant. He always does a super job helping us out here in the
He
mailbag.
does. Thank you.
Biggest area of improvement so far for this year's Alabama defense over last year's defense, Tim. I'll start with takeaways. We just talked about it. I mean, when you pick off 7 passes, I think it is, in 6 games, and you picked off 7 in 13 a year ago, and it ties in. The pressure's been consistent with Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell. But maybe the interior of that defense, too, is an area you would look even, especially in recent weeks.
I go to the pressure and the tackling. I mean, I just felt
Yeah,
last year that there was just a
true.
sense of the quarterback having way too much time. You take a bad quarterback with no pressure, and he's a good quarterback. A good one's going to be a great one. So when you get those guys, I think Max Johnson's a good quarterback. I think he's a prime example. To start the game on the 4th down, they had a great play called and came flash pressure off the edge. Lawson jumped that route
Yeah.
and stopped him, and that was a huge play. We forgot because there's so many plays after it. But I like the pressure. I like the tackling. I agree with everything you said. They look like an aggressive full, and you're not surprised with Kevin Steele, right? You're not
No.
surprised. This guy's all about fundamentals and basics, and I know all the jokes and and now they're all quiet, but there was a whole lot of don't hire Kevin Steele, but I think he's a sounding board for Saban for one, a peer, roughly in the same age group, same experience level, and then you got a guy that's just basics. You know what I mean? They speak the same language.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. And you're right. Those early stops against A&M, even when they forced the field goal, were very big. And the pressure you talked about on the 4th down that Dallas Turner was able to get, Max Johnson had a couple of guys wide open, but he had
Yeah.
absolutely not enough time. He had
No.
to throw the football where he threw it. Alabama anticipated that. Deontay Lawson right there and had that thing covered
It's a
up.
short yard. That's a short yard too. That
Yeah. It was a
wasn't a 3
3rd and
yard
1
play.
or a 3rd and 2 and a 4th and 1.
Yeah. So I mean, Lawson jumping that route again. It's good to see him back and running around healthy. And wasn't improvement. I mean, who's more improved, Lawson or Arnold?
Wow.
I mean,
It's close.
they're
I
both
think, and
really
I
good.
think for both those guys, it's a matter of comfortability. It just seemed like
Mhm.
last year there was some self-trust issues, which you get because of where each were
Absolutely.
at in their development. But I just get confidence, Tim. They're talented dudes,
Hey,
but the
very yeah.
confidence and the comfortability for both those guys right now seems like it's at a very high level. Goes to Brian also asking, has Ja'Cory Brooks become the forgotten man at receiver? It hasn't been the season that a lot of us anticipated for Ja'Cory. It got off to a rough start back in the preseason. And even of late, we've seen more of, say, Malik Benson to go along with Isaiah Bond and also Jermaine Burton than we've seen of Ja'Cory. Ja'Cory's still very involved, though, in special teams. He had the big block punt against Ole Miss. It seemed big at the time anyway. And, I don't think you can really count anybody out among these receivers. Now, Jermaine may be taking a big step towards becoming the guy, but 2, 3, 4, 5, they still got room for guys to emerge, right?
Yeah, quarterback's always going to have that safety blanket. We always talk about, like, for Bryce, it probably seemed like it was Jameson, but really it was Mechie. You know what I mean? Jameson was just always open. You're just out there throwing dimes, but Mechie, that guy that you're just comfortable with, you're kind of connected to. Maybe Burton is that guy for him. I know if Malik doesn't block that screen better, he might end up with less playing time. He got Isaiah
hung out.
I mean, didn't even, trip him or something, on that one.
Made you wonder if there was a girl involved in that one,
Maybe I was wondering if maybe he knew that double skip and bounce pass was coming, and he's like, you know what?
Yeah.
In the fourth quarter of this double skipper, I'm not going all
I'm
out.
not getting any blocks. I need to run. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll have to do better there.
What about here we go, Bon Jovi Jesus. I don't know if I got that right or not, but we still appreciate. Yeah, I'm going to go no probably there. But, I tried. And he wants to know, or she, what do you think Milroe's draft ceiling is, Tim? And do you have a comp for him with Jalen Milroe at this point?
His Hurts is just so lazy, right?
What's that?
Jalen Hurts is just so lazy, right? To kind of look at the same trajectory with them.
It's not lazy. I mean, they're both Texans. I think in terms of where they both at this point in their college careers needed to continue to develop, I think it was comparable between these two. The thing about Jalen Hurts was always that he was so young. I mean, he was 19 years old his junior season,
That's crazy.
And a fresh 19. He wasn't an old 19.
I think it's still that for me because of the more polished passing. I mean, we're still seeing Jalen Hurts get better as he goes along. Milroe, there's kind of the same question coming in, but I felt Hurts was a little bit more polished coming in. I love Milroe because, his team ran a lot. You didn't see him pass. I just thought the reps would help him and get in there. I would have to go. It's Jalen Hurts, right? I don't know if I can try to.
I'm going to give you one that you'll probably go Travis. Really, it's still too early to be into the vodka, but I'm going to give you Josh Allen.
Well,
Josh Allen, if you go back to Wyoming and you think about the physical attributes that were always there, Josh Allen can throw at 80 yards. Josh Allen coming out of college, there were questions about his ability to process, his decision-making, but if he broke the pocket, especially at his size, he could make plays with his legs. You still see him do it. And look, we talk about Josh Allen now as an NFL superstar, but you know what Josh Allen will do about every 4 or 5 games? He'll have an absolute stinker like he did against the Jets in that season opener. And really, even against the Jags last weekend, he wasn't especially great. And that's where I kind of see in some ways, some Jalen Milroe. Impressive athlete, can throw the deep ball, doesn't always make the right decisions at this point in his development. But again, there's no denying the physical attributes. Now, Jalen isn't even the size of Josh Allen. That's what makes Josh Allen crazy. Is, Jalen Milroe by college standards, pretty big quarterback. Josh Allen is what, 6'4", 6'5"?
He's a big dude out there. Yeah.
But that's I'm not saying he's going to go in the draft like where Josh Allen went, but if you want a comp that I see right now, it could be, I might go with Josh Allen there. I don't know. What do you think of that, Tim?
I would say, I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch more of, Allen. Everybody thinks Josh was, you don't end up at Wyoming.
He wasn't polished. He wasn't
polished. You're not at Wyoming because you're a 5-star. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? He's still not super polished. He's still, like you said, like Mahomes is very, the best quarterbacks are pretty consistent. You know what I mean?
Mahomes knows how to play quarterback, though, at the end of the day.
Not nonstop, no matter what. Rain, sleet, hail, best players out, no offensive line.
He takes chances, but that doesn't mean he doesn't know how to administer the offense, right? To play the quarterback position.
I think with Milroe, for me, 3rd to 4th round picks, 3rd to 5th round picks, the ceiling, that middle round.
Kind of like Jalen.
I think Jalen Hurts was going later than he was. I think only an unbelievable franchise. I think the Eagles are one of the best drafting franchises. They went and got the
they know to draft rugby. The SEC.
Yeah, remember, they also got the rugby guy who's like one of their starting tackles. You know what I mean?
That's true.
He was like doing next thing he's he's an Eagles guy. They draft really well. They got, Elias Ricks, who's playing for him, Josh Jobe, all the Georgia guys, the Bama guys traded up to get Smitty, broke the Giants' heart. So I think they're one of the best franchises. So I think they took a chance. I'm not sure others were going to take on Jalen. And don't forget, they had Carson Wentz under a extremely huge contract at the time. So I think Jalen Hurts probably was going to fall later in the second or early in the third. Milroe, to me, I think you have to draft a guy like Milroe. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Give him a chance. He's got a big arm. He's a big athlete. So it's a tough question because it's a tough question. It's a good question.
It is a good question, and it's tough to think that far ahead because we both know, even with the performance against Texas A&M, for a portion of the Alabama fan base, it's still a quarter-by-quarter evaluation for Jalen Milroe. I mean, if he doesn't play well in the first quarter against Arkansas, there's people that are going to be out with him. If he turns around the second quarter and throws for $175 and a couple touchdowns, people will be back in.
I think
so. It's the consistency you want to see with Jalen.
Yeah, first impressions are so important, right? Mm-hmm. Their first real good look at him was like last year with Arkansas and Texas A&M. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, we all make judgments. So he's got to overcome that. I've always thought it was just scrappy to win those games, honestly. I think there's a will in him. The one thing I notice is when he makes a mistake, like the pick, if you watch coming off the field, there's 20 guys waiting on him to high five him and hug him and all that.
He's their guy. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
And what a good guy he was. When Ty Simpson scored against South Florida, he's out in the field. I don't know his and Ty Simpson's relationship, but I think that's probably okay. I think they probably are our friends to some degree and competitors, obviously.
Our guy Jam Bama checking in here in the mailbag. He's got a few of them for us. What has impressed you most since the Texas game with this team? He asked. For me, Tim, it's been when the defense has had a chance since Texas to pretty much close out teams and close out offenses after halftime, they've absolutely done it.
Yeah, for me, I just haven't seen them hang their head.
Yeah, resilient.
South Florida, I mean, I was hanging my head. I imagine a lot of people were hanging their head, but I just didn't sense a team the defense could have easily said, this is ridiculous. We got to do it all. But they played like they were on fire. You know what I mean? So I haven't seen them hang their head. You mentioned early the anxiety and the angst. I don't see it. I see a little bit of swagger to this team, a little bit of confidence. I think Saban's done a great job of saying, this is what we came here for. You come to Alabama to play at College Station. You come to Alabama to play at Baton Rouge. That's why you come to the SEC, right? To play the best. We're here as competitors. And then to hear Milroe parrot that afterwards, I think that's the right message, is that we knew when you came to Alabama, going to Athens would be tough. Going to Baton Rouge and all these places. I think he's did a good job of saying, guys, we're playing football. That's it. We're playing football. It's not the end all. It's not the be all. We'll do the best we can. And, we'll talk about it after the game. I think that team is reflecting that.
Jay and Bama also asked here, top 3 choices remaining to fill out this 2024 college football recruiting class for the Alabama Crimson Tide. You got 3 names for us, Tim.
Well, they need a running back in theory. So Daniel Hill would be one, the Mississippi running back. They'd love to have Jordan Seaton. It's a big monster offensive tackle. IMG, and no name defensive lineman. Another defensive lineman, whoever they like. They've got a few on the board. That would be, this class is going to be a little bit different. That's what I think everyone's still adjusting to, because recruiting in general has changed, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can't get a guy you like, and this is not a good class, I'm not talking about Alabama or any school's class. This is not a good national class compared to last year's or this year's. All you got to do is look at the top player at each position and match them up and see how it shakes out. Also, it lacks depth. So you're in an era, if you're not going to take a bad high school football player or one you're not comfortable taking, if you can go in the portal and probably get somebody. So I think you'll see a lot of schools taking that approach. There's not going to be a lot of panic when it comes to that. So, but this was always going to be a little bit of a smaller class than we're used to. And last year they took, 77 guys, so we knew it would be smaller.
Jam Bama also asking about Alabama basketball recruiting. Aiden Sherrill, the big man from Prolific Prep out in Napa, California, recently made his verbal to Nate Oates and UA. And I know he's got a teammate, right? Darian Reed, a top 20 player, top 20 prospect in his own right, who has apparently wrapped up some visits, and it looks like Alabama, Florida State, Georgia. I believe he's originally from the state of Georgia. You got anything on us for us on that, Tim?
No, I feel like they're going to get their point guard. I think that's one thing they're looking for. Boogie McFarland, he's visited. Jace is another one Alabama's extremely high on. When you're looking at the one thing I've liked about this class overall that Nate Oates has done is he's positioned it really well for the dominoes to fall. You still got to kick the domino over to start it. Obviously getting, Cheryl is a big name, a lot of upside guy would be good, but coming in with a Boogie or a Jace Richardson would be good. A point guard will help fill in the middle of that class. So I think they're headed in the right direction. I know nobody outworks them. That's what I know. They're at more events. I mean, I've seen staffs that hustled, and as far as effort, and they're at the very top of anybody I've seen.
But Paul here in the Roundtable Mailbag, he says there's been a lot of clamoring for Justice Haynes to see the field. Saban alluded earlier in the season that we would see him as the season progressed. Do y'all think this could play out like Najee's freshman season, where suddenly you look up and his most meaningful action takes place in the biggest game of the season? Of course, that national championship win over Georgia. The second half there, you had freshmen really at multiple spots, not just Tua, not just Najee. I think Alex Leatherwood at left tackle, the receivers, obviously. But what about it? Justice Haynes had the injury in the preseason, I believe, and that slowed him. But we've seen a lot of Jason McClellan, a lot of Roydell Williams. Run game wasn't great against Texas A&M. Do you think it could play out this way? But Paul seems to think
I think it's going to be. I think what you've seen a lot of, and you tell me if you agree or disagree, is almost like figuring out your roster during the game. You're seeing guys play. You're seeing, a lot of people are going, there's been questionable decisions. No, they're trying to figure out the best lineup, the best offensive line, the best players. So if you're trying to iron out your offensive line and protect your quarterback, you got to go with what's absolutely the best for him, which you have to think is the top two guys getting the carries. As far as protection, we've seen them pick up several bandits coming after Jalen. But yeah, I do think Justice is going to play. I think he's too good. I think he's explosive at another level than anybody in that running back room. He's a hard worker. He takes it serious. I just don't know if the best opportunities have been there while they're ironing out and getting everybody on the same page. And I know they've had wins where they were up big and could have played people, but you still, when you're trying to work on your team, you want to keep that unit together and let them keep figuring it out. And I think they're starting to do that. So I'd expect to see more of Justice.
I think the biggest thing you worry about with first-year backs is pass protection. Absolutely. How many times have we seen it? They bust those protections and quarterbacks get killed. I don't have as much of a concern with Justice Haynes based on what I've seen to this point with him in that area. So I would expect to see more of them. We're going to talk a little bit more about kind of some things that might help those guys in general coming up in just a little bit. Lefty 20 wants to know, Tim, mid-season prediction for 2023 Alabama team captains. So we'll say three. Pick three guys that you think would perhaps fit that bill by the time that team banquet rolls around in December.
I mean, Jalen, right?
Milroe? I think so. He would be up there. I think so.
Lawson? I like Lawson.
Lawson would be in that mix defensively. I think Will Reichard should be one of the three.
Shoot. I think he should be the only one. I mean, are you? Yeah. Good call. Are you kidding?
Just have his own square at any time. Just one guy in a square.
Yeah, one captain this year. That's
Will Reichard to me is got to be. I would throw Malachi Moore in there, and especially before the injury. We'll see how that goes now for him. And I think J.C. Latham will be in that mix offensively too.
Mm-hmm.
But Milroe, compared to what you would have said 3 weeks ago, I don't know about Jermaine. Yeah.
If he finishes this year, that'll be it. That would be interesting.
Yeah, if he gets through the season. Yeah. No, I think we threw some good names out there.
Yeah. I like Kool-Aid too. I didn't hear you mention him.
Kool-Aid should be a Dallas Turner.
I mean, it might be three defensive guys if we're being honest.
You could have multiple defensive guys.
We're probably looking at losing Dallas, Kool-Aid, maybe Lawson, right?
Yeah.
So they're basically seniors. You could have three defensive guys, and I would say that's deserving because the defense has kind of carried this team through its roughest moments.
Yeah. Tex Tider, man. We love Tex Tider. You talk about a guy who's helped us with our YouTube promotion. Love it.
Thank you,
Tex
Tex.
Tider is asking for some midseason 2024 draft round projections. When you think first round right now, Tim, is it pretty much stayed consistent with Kool-Aid and Dallas and JC as three likely first round picks? And kind of from those guys, Chris Braswell,
Arnold.
you're hearing more about Terry and
Arnold.
Arnold. Yeah. So
I mean,
it
does
could
Arnold not
fluctuate.
have some Trayvon Diggs tendencies?
Yeah,
He
it
doesn't quite have
does.
his speed. Diggs has
I think at the at
banana
the
speed.
at the at the minimum, he can be Kareem Jackson, right?
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
he can
He was a first
also
round pick, right?
Kareem was,
Yeah.
Nick was adamant about Kareem staying another year, and
Hmm.
Kareem went out anyway. And then, I believe Kareem was the first round pick of the Houston
Yeah.
Texans.
Yeah. I think he was. First or second, anyways. But yeah, Arnold would be a stock up guy. Braswell would be a stock up guy. Um, I don't know about those interior linemen. I mean, Justin's going to get and be in the NFL third or
Yeah,
fourth
he's not a
round.
first round. He's kind of like a
Yeah.
Damian Square, is the way I
Yeah,
see
third or
Justin
fourth round.
avoiding,
Hey, and let me tell you, those
and
guys
still
make
stick
money,
and stick.
and
Yeah,
those guys make money, and they play a long time.
yeah, they do.
Yeah, they play a long time.
So those would be the guys that we're kind of looking at in that regard. Text Tider. Hampton 18. What's your favorite recruitment story of a recruit while covering Alabama? Appreciate all that you guys do. Thanks, Hampton 18. One particular story you got for us, Uncle Tim. It's story time with Uncle
And I
Tim.
don't know. I mean, I've thought about that. I saw the question. I mean, I've always I really enjoyed covering Andre Smith. It's not like a
Mm-hmm.
great story, but the whole his parents were great. I was the first one to, I don't know. I feel like I was the first one to talk about it. Andrew Bones probably going to text me when he sees this cussing me out. But um, uh, I was big on Andre, went to see him, monster guy, wrote about him. His mom used to give me credit for his offers. And I'd be like, Miss Smith, she's like, they came here because of you. And I was like, Miss Smith, I assure you they were going to find this guy. Cause I went like getting into sophomore year or whatever it was. And, but the parents were great. He was great. Mom was just an awesome person. Andre was a cool kid. His dad loved to talk. The whole showed up at USC. I remember when he called me, you tell me he showed up at USC and they had like 4 black Escalades pick him up.
Wow.
Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush. I was like, my goodness. He was playing video games in the back seat of the Escalade. He was all happy. Remember, they had those in the seat, the console. And then, of course, the moment where he put the Bear Bryant hat on was good. So covering a recruitment with no drama and just covering it, I think Andre's always going to be my favorite, I think.
One of my
Plus,
most
go ahead.
one of my most memorable is in the Mike Shula era because the day that Tim Tebow committed to Florida,
Yeah,
man, on the
that was
round
good.
table, it was just
Yeah.
black cloud central. And you and I had talked about they've got to have another guy that they're
Yes.
working.
Yes.
And that led us to making a call to one Greg McElroy out in Texas, who at the time was committed to Texas Tech. Call him up. I
Mhm.
go, hey, Greg, have you heard from the Alabama staff lately? He goes, oh, yeah, Coach Reicher calls me all the time. And I said, wow, there's
Yeah.
their quarterback. And the rest, as they say, is history
But don't
with Greg
forget there
McElroy.
was Chris Smelly, right?
Yeah,
And he
ACA at the
committed.
time.
Well, everybody thought at the time he was Tebow's backup.
Yep, you're
If
right.
Tebow went somewhere else, well, then he decided to commit a week before Tebow went. So
Mm-hmm.
that added to
Goes to South Carolina.
yeah, that added to the mystique and mystery of that whole situation. And I remember after I got a call, the dad was about to sue. The dad was very upset with the Texas Tech site at the time because Mike Leach was telling everybody some stuff. I know Mike Leach cussed out Greg, didn't he?
I think
For the
it
dad,
might have been. I don't remember that, but
he was
he
extremely
wasn't happy.
upset.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was extreme. I don't remember if he talked to the dad
Yep.
or the mom or the son, but I remember he was extremely upset. He knew he was pretty good, I think.
And to
So
make matters worse, Texas Tech followed that up by losing to Alabama in
he almost shut
the
out.
Cotton Bowl.
That
Yeah.
was a wild. That's a good one. That's a wild story. So many different. I had a Fox here in Birmingham in my living room on my back porch actually when he committed. Like, what's your reaction? I was like, Travis,
Hey,
what we got?
let's talk with MB Bama here. He wants us to rank the most difficult games left on the schedule for Alabama. You got, of course, Arkansas, Tennessee, LSU, Kentucky, and Auburn. We'll go more with Tennessee, LSU, Kentucky, and Auburn. How would you rank those four, Tim?
I think Auburn's the toughest, right? Really?
Wow, because it's on the
I
road.
just I
Yeah,
just think it's at Auburn. I think there's a certain
mystique.
trepidation that goes
We
with
talked about
playing there.
Halloween. That's been a house of horrors. There's no
Yeah,
doubt.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's the best team Alabama's going to play, but I think that's going to be the toughest environment. Alabama coming in last game of the year. Hugh Freeze will have them hyped. I mean, obviously the best team offensively they'll face will be LSU. I think that's an easy call. Their offense is doing really well. Their defense is struggling pretty bad, but their offense is really good. And I think probably facing Kentucky on the road, that'll be probably the toughest defense. So, um,
Yeah, I'm gonna go LSU, Tennessee, Auburn / Kentucky. I'm gonna throw in an or like a Nick Saban depth chart there. Um, I just wonder about what will be left of Auburn's team by the time the end of the season, the
that
regular
could be true.
season gets
That
here,
could be
because
true.
that roster is not elite. And if
No,
Auburn is able to stay healthy between now and November 25th, okay, I
I just
probably
think
be
it's going to be the
right there with
roughest
you.
environment, not the
Anytime you
best
go
team.
to Jordan Hare, it's not fun. Just
I mean,
ask Georgia a
they're going
couple
to
weeks
wait the
ago.
whole year for this, as they
Oh, no
should.
doubt.
Alabama's going to roll in.
Yeah. You
But you're
can
right.
set your clock by Auburn in years in which it's going to host Alabama. They love to make that coaching change. Get that first year
Yeah,
coach an opportunity at
it does
home in
seem
that
like it
series.
does. It absolutely does seem that way.
It
Tennessee,
does seem
we
that way.
definitely should talk about after last year's game.
Hmm.
LSU and Tennessee, that's pretty big. Almost revenge games, right? Two
Yeah.
very, very bitter
I think
losses.
LSU is the one team on the schedule left that could put Alabama in an uncomfortable situation offensively, where it has to get into more of a track meet to win the game.
Yeah,
Now,
which is similar to last year.
Alabama might end up scoring 50 against that LSU defense. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
they're secondary.
not
It's
good.
just surprising. I mean, it's like, I was making kidding about it at first, but as more the season went on, I started digging. I was like, the one thing you could guarantee about an LSU deep secondary was they had a first, second round pick there, right?
Hmm.
They've always have guys. They always have. Louisiana produces a lot of great athletes, defensive backs. They just don't have those guys this year. I mean, Denver Harris is there, but he was a highly recruited guy. I don't think he's locked down a corner or anything yet, but definitely a different animal on defense.
Bama Ducks, we're going to tie one of yours in with Colebone 2000 here to wrap up the mailbag, which is, what is the take on the offensive play calling to date? Also, what do you feel is the issue with the lack of quick throws and RPO? I think the play calling, if there's a surprise to me, it continues to be, Tim, that there hasn't been more diversity in the run game. It's been largely a lot of inside runs, running back centric runs, not as much of Jalen Milroe in the designed run game. And I thought against A&M, especially after last year's game against the Aggies, that we would see more perimeter runs. And I know that Jahmyr Gibbs, that was kind of his thing, and he's no longer around, but Chase can do that.
Yeah,
And we didn't see them really do that against A&M last week. As far as quick throws and RPO, we saw more of a quick passing game in the second half in College Station. It wasn't RPO based. And you're right, we really haven't seen much of that, which it makes me wonder if there's a comfortability issue for Jalen uh,
yeah.
in that game, in that part of the game, as far as making throws off of RPO. It seems like we've seen him do it in the past, but with Tommy Reese, it just hasn't been a big part of things, Tim.
Yeah, maybe just limit your risk versus your reward. You get those corners jumping on those short patterns. Let's be honest. I mean, anyone that watched the film in Texas, those corners are thinking jump, 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 jump,
Right.
anything short. That's also why those guys are wide open deep. You give them a little hitch. I mean, they are thinking, hey, mom, film this one. And next thing you know, you got one of those jets flying by them for a touchdown. So I think you're right with just being familiar with that throw. And he's maybe just more comfortable with a lot of, several other throws. So just kind of take that one out of the playbook for the most part.
Yeah, RPO, you're putting more on the quarterback too. Pre-snap, after
Yeah.
the snap, making reads. And if you've watched the sort of operation from the booth to the sideline to Jalen, it's been very controlled. Tommy Rees is in charge of that thing from the play call to the check to just about everything. So that there
let him
isn't
build
that
some
sort of freedom
confidence,
yet either. Sure.
I know a lot of people got hung up on the fact that it's his third year in the program, which it is, but it doesn't matter. He's still starting for the first time.
Yeah.
He's getting the first team reps. The game plan's being adjusted to him. So he's basically, he's still a rookie for the most part.
Yep.
And it's a new, again, I just think we underestimated. I think maybe the media didn't stress enough for the fans to know is you got a first-year offensive coordinator. You got a first-year starting quarterback. Tommy Rees, I'm not familiar with anybody he's ever coached, which was that was similar to Jalen Milroe. So there's a different mindset of getting familiar with each other and, making it work. And I think they're doing a lot better job.
Yeah, we're going to try to do a better job as we continue to do these, Tim Watts and myself. And we are very familiar with each other because, well, we've worked together for over 20 years now at BamaOnline.com.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of that deal with us, and this is, still a first. Well, okay. Still a first for us, though, when it comes to a video edition of T. Watts and TR. And Tim, as always, it's been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, I love it. I'm glad we're picking these up and doing it. It's good seeing the round table so active.
Absolutely.
Alabama fans are as passionate as anybody. I know they can be too passionate at times, but that's better than being having no interest, in your program. I'll always take that. I'll always take that. So we appreciate all you guys.
Absolutely. Appreciate all of our members and our followers there at BamaOnline.com helping us out on the Round Table Mailbag and also checking in right here on our new YouTube channel. We know more than 1,000 of you to date have chosen to do that. We appreciate you, and we hope you'll tell a friend, tell someone else about it. Let's keep this thing growing on the YouTube and podcast homes for BamaOnline.com. For Tim Watts, Travis Reier, thanking you again. Until next time, so long, everybody.